Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's session on design thinking and transformation in the exciting world of procurement, brought to you by ISG and WNS Denali. My name is Shahid Bhatti. I am a director in ISG's procurement practice, and I will be your host for what we hope will be an informative video that may spur you to look at procurement transformation and transforming your procurement organization in a different manner. With me today are two thought leaders in the procurement world, and we can get started with their introductions. So let me start by asking Scott to introduce himself.
Okay. Thank you, Shahed, and welcome everyone, and hello. My name is Scott Furlong. I'm a partner with ISG, and I lead our global business operations practice, which really focuses on transforming procurement and other general and administrative functions for clients. And in doing so, we've incorporated over the last 10 years design thinking principles into our transformative efforts with clients in order to really drive innovation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But it's really been, a very powerful tool for us. And we just wanted to share a couple stories, as well as with Alpar from WNS sharing a couple of their success stories. And, truth be told, elements of design thinking have gone back have been part of my toolkit. Elements like visioning, as an ideation method, have been part of my toolkit for 20 years, even before we knew it was design thinking. So, these are tried and true, concepts, and they really have worked well with our clients, and with WNS has had a lot of success with them as well. So we hope you learn and are intrigued a little bit and want to learn more about design thinking. We were asked by Shahed earlier off camera to describe design thinking in one word. And it's a pretty difficult task, especially for me. But I really came up with the word formidable. And I'll explain why I used formidable a little bit later. But right now, I'm going to pass it back to Shahed, and we can have Alpar introduce himself. But thank you for attending and watching this video.
Thank you, Scott. Alpar, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Shahid. Thanks, Scott, for that introduction. Again, I'm excited to be here. My name is Alpar Kamber. I am the founder and CEO of Denali, now WNS Denali, and I lead our overall global business. And as you said, design thinking is really ingrained in our DNA. If I go back to our very, very early days of incepting our business, we applied design thinking principles to help procurement organizations operationalize their procurement function. And later on in the discussion, I'll give some examples of how we've done that. But design thinking in itself, I'd like to share a couple of photos that I took on my ways to travel to different countries. Two specific ones. One, I was in Italy, actually on vacation, and in the hotel room, I saw this control panel for air conditioning. And as you know from I know you all travel quite a bit. It's the most challenging thing is you go from hotel room to hotel room, and the control panel for operating the AC is quite challenging and different every time. So in this one, you can see the simplicity of just an on and off button, and just red and blue showing you the temperature for you to arrange. So just by itself, creating simplicity, which is my magic word in design thinking, is to think about simplicity but still doing the function. And this one really explained it for me. And then the second one, another photo is I took when I was in Japan. Is another country is known for its design. And I was at the airport and I had to go to the restroom. And this was, because space is so limited in Japan and Tokyo specifically, they have to make room of every usable space. And so what you see in this is a toilet with a faucet built in, where you wash your hands, and it kind of has that feeding off of each other and conservation of water, as well as conservation of space. So it really fits the purpose of design thinking in my mind as well. So looking forward to the conversation and now how we can apply design thinking and procurement to elevate the game of procurement.
Thank you, Alpar. So earlier this year, ISG published a comprehensive report on procurement BPO and digital transformation, looking at the various approaches that enable optimization and ideally future-proof the enterprise procurement function while minimizing direct enterprise investments in software or new tools or massive spending in infrastructure or skills. ISG recognized WNS Denali as part of that study to be a leader and a formidable partner for digital transformation. And so we're really happy to be here today with Scott, who led that research project, and Alpar, who just introduced himself as the head of WNS Denali, to discuss the cutting edge methods for successful transformation. So let's start out by looking at how procurement function has evolved or not evolved. If we trace back to the ancient history, to the Egyptian ancient history, Egyptians used to use scribes to manage the supply of massive projects. These scribes would track orders and fulfill supply requests. We have come a long way since ancient Egypt, we hope, but some of our approaches and practices have literally remained the same. And it's probably time for a change. And today we are talking about how design thinking could be a way forward, especially in terms of embarking on digital transformation journeys and digital transformation projects that require a new way of thinking. According to a recent LinkedIn poll, about 56% of the procurement professionals have not yet applied design thinking principles to a project at their organization. This means there's a huge opportunity for procurement leaders to consider how a design thinking approach could help their organizations. Alpar, you earlier described how design thinking in a single word as being simplistic. How have you seen your clients apply design thinking, especially as it relates to digital transformation?
Yeah, so great question. I think when we look to some of the examples of where we work with clients, and we try to look at the entire ecosystem of procurement, because I think in our view, everything is connected and you have different players in the ecosystem, whether it's your stakeholders, it's your suppliers, it's your internal functions. To be able to do procurement from beginning to the end, you touch different, these different players, and they do their part in terms of pushing it through. So one of the things that we've done, I remember, is to go back to the end user centricity and thinking of simplicity. Even though you may have a great operations, when it comes to procurement, we wanted to look at the touch points. So the initial touch point to a stakeholder where you initially engage is that initial intake, where they have a need, they have a request, and what are the means for them to come and engage with procurement, right? So when we looked at this in this example, the client, there were a dozen ways a stakeholder could engage with procurement, all led to the same kind of, different entry points, but same outcome. So that was one level of complexity that was there. The second one was the set of questions or, input that they have to put in was quite large, whereas not all of that was necessary. And that added a second layer of complexity and make it more difficult for the initial stakeholder to engage. So what we've done is with a focus group discussion, we sat down with a representative group of stakeholders. We asked them questions about, what is the essence of your needs and what are the kind of the key pieces of information that procurement needs to know to be able to start doing the work. And we've simplified that initial intake. We've designed an intake platform we call Project Track, where they engage. And then we've also embedded visibility and transparency into the process for them to see what's going on, where the project is. So thinking through the eyes of the stakeholder really helped us design something that benefited procurement overall in terms of the level of engagement and the simplicity of the process. The second example, again, on that one, a key stakeholder is the supplier. We interact with suppliers on every project, right? And, for them, we were going to them asking the usual set of questions over and over again. And after, again, interviewing them and doing a focus group discussion with them, the discovery was that what if we've consolidated some of these key pieces of information that we asked them many times in a given year and kept it as part of our record, and don't ask those, only ask any new information that we want to ask them as part of the evaluation process. So that also simplified the process for them, improved the level of engagement, also shortened the cycle time. So those are all two good examples where I think design thinking could be useful when you bring the thinking of the end user feedback and the outcome you want to drive and apply a simplicity to what you're trying to do.
That's great perspective, Alpar. Scott, turning to you. You earlier described design thinking as being formidable. What are some of the learnings from your research related to procurement and on achieving digital transformation goals that a design thinking approach typically helps or accelerates?
Okay, great. I think that it's some of it's been developed from research, but a lot of it has been developed, like Alpar, from working with clients, right? So, in essence, that could be research, but it's really getting down and rolling up your sleeves and working with clients where we get the most learnings over the years. The reason that I think design thinking is formidable is the power of the design thinking principles to really transform the thought processes of the participants. So to really unlock the innovation that resides in all of us, but that our training and our practices that we've developed and been taught in our enterprises and our organizations have really been effectively blocking that innovation over the years that we've been in this business. So, to give you an example, I led a design thinking workshop for a large high-tech company almost 10 years ago now to transform the procurement function. The sponsor of the workshop was the corporate controller, not the chief procurement officer, but the corporate controller. And he called me up 2 days before the workshop, and he was participating in the workshop. And he said, "Scott, if I had my way, we'd still be closing the books with green ledger paper." So think about that. This is, 2012, 2013, this is not, 1985, 1990. This is, fairly recent. And, with the power of the systems and the technology that we have, here was a corporate controller for a large major corporation that still wanted to use green ledger paper. So he was very old school in his thinking. And, clearly that old school thinking is not necessarily conducive to driving innovation and innovative thought. So I asked him to suspend his disbelief just during the workshop and let's see what happens. And he agreed to do that. And our goal in the workshop was very simple, and it was transform the procurement process from what was viewed within the organization as a hurdle to making it an accelerator, to getting their job done. For the stakeholders, the requisitioners, et cetera. And so we went through the design thinking process, including empathy mapping. During empathy mapping, where we take a stakeholder and we make them our North Star, we discovered that, a lot of the requisitioners, which was our key stakeholder, were telling us one thing in that they supported the procurement process, but doing something completely opposite. Maverick spend was, at an all-time high. They were ignoring the procurement process and the procurement capital S system. They weren't following the process. They were not buying from, contracts that had been established by the, procurement organization. So all the strategic sourcing efforts that the company had accomplished many of them were effectively rendered useless because people were going off and doing their own thing and buying outside of the process. So we went through and we developed a wow statement, which is another design thinking principle. And our wow statement was very simple. It was to build on Alpar's simplicity, and it was to enable any requisitioner to acquire a good or service from anywhere in the world in 90 seconds. So you think about that. It's allowing them to acquire speed, 90 seconds. So that's an accelerator, not a hurdle. It allows them to do it anywhere. They don't have to be sitting at their desks. They don't have to be, in front of on the phone with a buyer. They can do it anywhere. And so that was our wow statement. And then, I'll jump to the solution in a minute, but I do want to focus on one thing. There are many critical success factors to a design thinking workshop, including developing a compelling wow statement, right? So something that everybody can get behind and say, if we accomplish this, wow, we will have done something special. But it's also another critical success factor is the environment. So I've never tried to run a design thinking workshop, and Alpar, I don't know if you have, in a classroom setting or in a classic conference room, but I have to believe in my heart of hearts that it would be much less effective. So when we design the environment for one of these workshops, it has lots of whiteboards, movable if possible. It has flip charts, Post-it notes. We keep 3M in business, right? Markers. What it doesn't have is it doesn't have desks. We don't have, we may have one computer screen just to throw up a prototype or to demonstrate something, and that's a movable LCD, but we're not sitting at laptops. We're not sitting at desks, and we get people up, we get them moving around. We make it fast paced, right? To keep momentum going, but also to make sure that we don't revert back to kind of the standard solutions, right? And the incremental solutions. So we keep things, the environment is very, very important. So what was the end result of this workshop? The team came up with an incredibly innovative solution, but more importantly, the corporate controller transformed his thinking from a skeptic to a champion of the solution. And he was the first one at the end of the meeting saying, we've got to get this thing prototyped. We got to put a virtual prototype in place next week. And then we've got to start working on an actual prototype. And so, having that old school corporate controller really change his complete perspective was really the power of design thinking to me. And that's why I chose the word formidable. It is a formidable process, and it can really transform procurement.
Thank you, Scott and Alpar, for your perspective. We hope you found the discussion useful and that we inspired you to learn more about design thinking. There's a fantastic tool available for design thinking, and there is a link on the screen for this particular resource. Again, thank you. Be safe and be well.